Hello everybody. I'd like to say hello today from the lands of the Woiwurrung, Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne. And I'd really like to say how great it is to be a Melburnian, how good it is to be a Victorian, how good it is to be an Australian, how good it is to be a white Australian, how good it is to be a rich white Australian, how good it is to be a rich white heterosexual Australian, how good it is to be a rich white cisgendered heterosexual Australian, how good it is to be a rich white cisgendered heterosexual Pentecostal Australian. How good are the Australian people? How good are mates, blokes, Sheilas, diggers, Aussie battlers, mainstream Australians, working families, middle Australia? How good are the quiet Australians? How good is being a typical Aussie bloke? How good is being a daggy dad? How good are Barbies? How good is a prawn on the Barbie? Coleslaw, rissoles, hot chips, lamingtons, party pies, sausage rolls, meat rice, chicken rolls, fish and chips, strawberries, and cooking a curry. How good are family holidays? How good are family holidays to the NT? How good are family holidays to Hawaii? How good are family holidays in the middle of a crisis? How good is sport? How good is footy? How good is footy, cricket, tennis, netball, basketball, soccer, swimming, running, jumping, throwing, hitting? How good is going to the footy? How good was the Women's AFL Grand Final, setting the record for a women's sporting event? How good is going to the footy in the middle of a national crisis? How good is taking a load off? How good is an Aussie summer? How good is swimming at Bronte Beach? How good is building a chicken coop? How good is that? How good are women? How good is Jenny? How good are mums? How good is marriage? How good is marriage between a man and a woman? How good is a plebiscite on marriage? How good is creating division? How good is the gender binary? How good is having babies? How good is having babies for you? How good is having babies for you and for the country? How good is having free childcare? How good is having free childcare and taking it away? How good is really expensive childcare? How good is paying childcare workers really low salaries? How good is women staying home? How good is the stimulus for male-dominated industries? How good is women staying at home and in the kitchen? How good are heteronormative families? How good is the tax on tampons? How good is denying abortion? How good is older women being homeless? How good is the gender pay gap? How good is it making it harder for women to be independent? How good is the patriarchy? How good is living on stolen land? How good was Captain Cook? How good are the benefits of colonisation? How good is celebrating the history of white oppression every year on the 26th of January? How good is spending $60 million to reenact white invasion? How good is questioning people's cultural identity? How good is never having to say you're sorry? How good is taking people's children away? How good is controlling the narrative of history? How good is making decisions about other people's lives without any consultation? How good is no parliamentary representation? How good is no treaty? How good is deaths in custody? How good is police violence? How good is blowing up 4,600 years of history? How good is racism? How good is white privilege? How good is a gas-led recovery? How good is a national advisory panel? How good is mining? How good is the mining sector? How good is jobs, jobs, jobs and more jobs? How good is coal? How good is denial? How good is climate denial? How good is not listening to science? How good is continuing to contribute to a higher carbon emissions? How good is creative accounting? How good is cheating? How good is investing in gas, carbon capture, carbon storage, clean coal? How good is using all our resources right now? How good is destroying the Great Barrier Reef? How good is a carbon tax? How good is the NEG? How good was sacking the PM? How good is finding a scapegoat? How good is not meeting our international commitments? How good is no energy policy? How good are cars, utes, SUVs, roads, road tolls, highways, freeways, walkways, raceways, speedways? How good is selling wool, selling barley, selling coal, selling uranium, selling rubbish, selling water? How good is hot weather, drought, dead fish, soil erosion, dried land, poor air quality, fires, rising sea levels, rising temperatures, rising energy bills, rising anxieties, evacuating towns, locking down cities, running out of food, running out of water, running out of toilet paper? How good is praying for rain? How good are miracles? How good are strong borders? How good are strong borders for some? How good is a strong federal border but a soft state border? How good is a ring of steel? How good is an increased police presence? How good is stopping the boats? How good is opening Christmas Island? How good is closing Christmas Island? How good is opening Christmas Island, closing Christmas Island, opening Christmas Island, closing Christmas Island? How good is stopping the boats? How good are sick kids? How good is repealing Medivac? How good is denying people basic human rights? How good is deporting families? How good is cutting refugee places in the middle of a global pandemic? How good is having no compassion? How good is deciding how people will come to this country and the manner in which they will come? How good is locking people up? How good is mandatory detention? How good is pretending that some people just don't even exist? How good is allowing people to discriminate? How good is one rule for us and another rule for everyone else? How good is a fair go? How good is a fair go for all Australians? How good is a fair go for all Australians but a better go for the rich? How good is having a go? How good is getting a go? How good is having a go and getting a go? How good are lines outside Centrelink? How good is a cashless debit card? How good is economic stimulus? How good is being back in the black? How good is debt? How good is household debt? How good is spending money? How good is a tax cut? How good is a bigger tax cut for the rich? How good is making money out of people's unemployment, health, care, aged care, childcare, education, birth, life, death? How good is austerity? How good is fiscal responsibility? How good is $1 trillion debt? How good is recession? How good is casual employment, the gig economy, wage theft, union busting, ensuring integrity bill? How good is living off $40 a day? How good are jobs? How good is job seeker, job keeper, job maker, job trainer, job taker, job faker, job finder, job grabber, job creator, job destroyer, job runner, job laugher, job lover, job fighter, job hater, job cracker, job hacker, job lister, job winner, job loser? How good is a lifetime pension? How good is the bubble? How good is the Canberra bubble? How good is a market bubble, credit bubble, economic bubble, commodity bubble, equity bubble, asset bubble, housing bubble, debt bubble? How good is the COVID bubble? How good is the New Zealand bubble? How good is the single bubble, couple bubble, social bubble, throuple bubble? How good is a 1.5 kilometre bubble, 5 kilometre bubble, 10 kilometre bubble, 25 kilometre bubble? How good is a social bubble, Facebook bubble, Twitter bubble, Google bubble, WeChat bubble, TikTok bubble, Snapchat bubble, 4chan bubble, Twitch bubble, Zoom bubble, arts bubble, science bubble, maths bubble, business bubble, engineering bubble, heat bubble, regional bubble, inner city bubble? How good is a birth bubble? How good is a daily press conference? How good is being a politician at a daily press conference? How good is wearing a suit, wearing high-vis, wearing a hard hat, wearing an akubra, shearing a sheep, throwing a ball? How good is media at a press conference? How good is News Corp, Sky News, Herald Sun? How good is Rupert, Alan, Paul, Ray, Neil, Peter, Andrew, Tony, Gladys, Pauline, Jackie, Barnaby, Clive, Gina, Peter, Josh, John and the Queen? How good is endless attacks on my opponents? How good is going around and around in circles? How good is not listening to people? How good is thinking that you know better? How good is a royal commission? How good is turning your back? How good is showing your crack? How good is doing whatever the fuck you want? How good is forcing people to like you? How good is forcing people to shake your hand? How good is cracking down on protesters? How good is the federal police raiding journalists' home? How good is finding someone to blame? How good is passing the buck? How good is just not answering the question? How good is being non-committal? How good is misinformation? How good is a smirk? How good is shifting the blame? How good is blaming the states? How good is it's not my problem? How good is talk to the hand? How good is being a bully? How good is not taking responsibility? How good is absolutely no comment? How good is no answer? How good is just change the subject? How good is just getting the fuck out of here?